that is owed, who should pay it, what those payments should look like, how they should be distributed, and who exactly should receive it. That's why I said some of y'all are going to be asked out. But we want to make sure that this is not just a barbershop conversation, this is an actual conversation that happens in the diaspora so that people know what they should be expecting. All right. Now, don't listen to me anymore. We have an amazing panel to help have this conversation. First up, musician, actor, and entrepreneur, Atlanta's own Kamilah. Actress and co-founder of Color Farm Media, Erika Alexander. Best-selling author, filmmaker, social media influencer, and museum owner, Tariq Nasheed. Political consultant, host of the Straight No Chaser podcast, and REVOLT Black News contributor, the hood whisperer herself, Tezlyn Figaro. International activist, researcher, author, and entrepreneur, Rizza Islam. And the chairperson of the California Reparations Task Force, Kamilah Moore, Esquire. Yep. All right, guys, let's go ahead. Appreciate y'all standing and waiting for me. Guys, let's get right to it. Five important topics. Mike, let's start with you. We just saw in that package that you have strong feelings about how the debt of reparations should be paid. You feel like it should be land.
Yeah.
Why do you feel like that's the answer?
I think it's a culmination of things, but I think that if you're not asking for land as a big part of that, that maybe you're off course. If Bill Gates, who makes all his money off microchips and computers, is now trying to get the largest land on the United States, you know, you want a good sense of where to find some food, follow $100. You know, if Gates want land, why aren't we 54% of all African Americans live in the South? We know we were enslaved here. We know we built the economy of the South. We know we were the cornerstone of the South, said by Alexander Stevens, the Vice President of the Confederacy, who Stevens counted his name for, said the cornerstone of the Confederacy is slavery. So since the cornerstone of building this bitch took us working for free, we deserve something. And what we deserve is land, and we deserve land grants like Dr. King asked for. We deserve to have government contracts that for 100 years in perpetuity for that land. So if corn needs to be grown, we should be granted the land. We should be given the contracts to grow the corn. Why does that work? Because it keeps a dollar cycle, not only in our community, but the greater community. I would like to walk out of this. I know you don't solve all the problems here, but I'd like to walk out knowing that if we don't deserve anything else, we deserve land, we deserve money, we deserve education. And the only other thing is, there has been, and I got a friend Yvette Cardinal was saying this, Antonio Moore, without something in terms of purpose, without some money, without some political policy, without some change, then it all equals nothing. So we need to push the line locally, like what's happening in California, because once one state breaks their balls, makes them break the bank, then it's easier to repeat. But if you're in Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, the Carolinas, Louisiana, Texas, you deserve your fair share of land.
What about everybody else? Is not giving up on that, of course. What about everyone else? Checks, land grants, free education. What is everybody else? What's in your minds about how reparations should be figured out?
Land is one aspect of it, in respect to my brother Mike. The thing is, we don't just want land because they'll do what they're doing in Mississippi. There's a bunch of people who live in the city, but then they'll take the water. They will do certain things like they do in certain Indian reservations. They will pollute the creeks, things like that. So land is one option, but we need cash payments. And when we get the cash, we can buy whatever land we need.
I'll add, I'm an international human rights scholar. There's a legal definition for what reparations is. So under international law, reparations comes in 5 forms. So compensation or cash must be included because that's one of the forms of reparations under international law. But there's also restitution, and that accounts for stolen land, stolen labor, stolen property, real or intellectual. So that's relevant in the entertainment space in terms of the cultural contributions of African Americans, right? The other form of reparations under international law is rehabilitation. So that can look like free medical care from birth to death, free education, free legal and trauma services. Then there's satisfaction, which accounts for more symbolic forms of reparations, like a formal apology, the taking down of Confederate monuments, and the erecting of statues that honor our ancestors, for instance. And then the last, or the fifth form of reparations under international law is guarantees of non-repetition. So that gets at more structural and institutional policy change. So my personal opinion is that you cannot call a reparations package reparations unless it includes all 5 of those forms. So it has to include cash, it has to include a check, it has to include restitution, it has to include rehabilitation, it has to include satisfaction, and it has to include guarantees of non-repetition.
So, Erika, you took on the subject of reparations and documentaries called Payback.
Piggyback said, the emotional part of this, the apology, America coming to face its needs, America like really litigating what happened in the past. How big of that, how big of a part of reparations is that? Like the country coming to terms with what slavery was and what the legacy of slavery has been for hundreds of years.
Say the middle part of that, please.
Like I'm saying, how important is America coming to terms with the legacy of slavery as part of the reparations package that we're talking about? What is that?
I believe that America is held back karmically by its debt. Not only the moral debt, but the actual debt. How important is it? I don't believe that America can be America without having to deal and play restitution to the people that has done wrong. We talk about the Native Americans. We talk about how important it was that they got restitution and reparations and some kind of acknowledgement for the killing and the murder and the land grab, thievery. But when it comes to African Americans, we get amnesia, white amnesia. No, just get over it, move on. Nobody who's living did that then. And I said, but that debt is living in the karmic value of America. So I actually believe that America is doomed if it does not pay. I believe that it can't go on if it doesn't do restitution. Because that right there will be, as James Baldwin says, will wreck it. So I think it's more than anything, America needs to come to terms with it. Otherwise, America isn't America.
America's conscience is as it relates to Black people. Do you echo her sentiments? Do you feel like not just a financial part of this should be considered, but also what the country owes Black people emotionally and spiritually?
I'll say this, when it comes to the Asian community, no one says anything about that. No one has amnesia. When it comes to the Jewish community, no one has amnesia. When it comes to Chinese, when it comes to the LGBT, no one has amnesia. All different groups and organizations are able to have access to the wealth, to land, etc. When it comes to Black people, well, we don't have enough money. They didn't say that to Ukraine. They don't say that to any other country. They send money to the tunes of millions, hundreds of millions, and even billions on a regular. America's in debt to the tune of over $20 trillion. Absolutely. We'll print some more. Because you're printing for everybody else. And there are other ways to make sure we get that. So yes, I echo our sister's sentiment, but not only the financial. Yes, there needs to be an open apology like Bill Clinton apologized and said we'll never experiment on people like we did with Tuskegee. America needs to resoundingly, both sides, Democrats, Republicans, the House and the Senate, to come out and officially acknowledge every single thing that they have done up to the very point to what they are continuing to do right now. From the prison industrial complex to the experimentation with these poisonous shots, I'm going to say it, because now that has to be added to reparation as well. They experimented on over 200 million people in America, my brother. That has to be added to the reparations. You're damn right we're going to talk about it. So I'll leave it at that point.
That go back to the source of slavery or the source of enslavement itself. And there are some people on the continent that might also bear responsibility for that. wondering what anybody on the panel might think about that idea.
We're seeing a narrative now where the white supremacists are deflecting away from themselves, saying, well, we're not the only ones who owe you, the Africans, they enslaved you too. The thing is, those African nations don't exist no more. The kingdom of Dahomey doesn't exist no more. You see the new movie, The Woman King Out, which is a horrible rendition of what happened, but that kingdom doesn't exist. They were colonized, and the wealth that they accrued, that was absorbed by the white supremacists in Britain and the white supremacists over here. Even these so-called Africans who enslaved us, they got re-enslaved themselves, and many of them were brought over too. So not only does the white supremacists owe us, you owe them Africans too. So you owe all of us the reparations check. You came over here and became foundational Black Americans.
And Erika, I'm right back to you. Who, as you use the term foundational Black Americans, who, in your opinion, is owed reparations? Because I look out in the audiences, Black is an all-encompassing term when it comes to America. When the money is meted out or the land or whatever it is that we're talking about, who gets it?
The people who are going to get reparations for slavery are the people who are descended from slaves. This is not reparations for racism. That's another claim, right? A lot of people try to muddy the water. If we try to do reparations for racism, that's going to include Latinos, that's going to include some white people. They can say that they've experienced racism, so that brings in a whole crop of people, and then that muddies the waters. We're talking about reparations for people who built the country, and the descendants of the people who built the country, the descendants of slaves who are foundational Black Americans specifically should get reparations to no other group.
To slip on the pole and break their neck. There's only one person they're going to sue. It's going to be REVOLT. There's no confusion on, well, I slipped and the other person next to me slipped and they could have slipped. When you talk about a legal claim, and I can throw that back to you, but when you talk about a legal claim and who is actually owed, it is where the harm was done specifically. And when we talk about that, we're talking about the descendants of slaves in America that was built in America. And like Tariq said just a moment ago, we can get the check from Africa too, or anybody else that had anything to do with slavery. But when we're talking about America and what is owed in America, it is directly the descendants of slaves in this country. And like my brother Rizza pointed out, it is not just slavery, because we want to make sure that people don't get caught up in that talking point where they just stop with slavery. We're talking about redlining, we're talking about sharecropping, we're talking about mass incarceration, we're talking about Jim Crow, all of the things that happened as a result of slavery that still exists today.
Where do Caribbean Americans fit into? Because there was slavery all throughout the islands. They have become, obviously, a huge part of the Black American diaspora. I'm wondering, if they had slavery there, where do they fit into this?
Well, they have something called CARICOM, where all the Caribbean nations got together and they are fighting the British colonialism and the French. So they have a reparations movement going on over there. We're not included in that, and that's fine. So we have our own reparations movement for foundational Black Americans, and we can't include other people because, again, that muddies the waters. But again, I'm all for them getting reparations from the islands that were colonized by the British and the French.
Define the term foundational Black American people.
Okay, foundational Black American, that is a Black American, or what we are known to be called as African American, a person who's Black, who's not an immigrant. You don't come from an immigrant background. Foundational Black Americans are the only group who are non-immigrants. You're the people who built the country from scratch. You didn't immigrate from anywhere. You were descendants of slaves who built the country. That's what all the foundational Black American is. It's not an organization. It's not a group. It is a lineage specific to this land.
So, I watched an interview. There could be a chance somebody white might have had in their family a couple of people who were enslaved. They might be able to make a legal claim that says, hey, so-and-so so many years ago, this person is with this person. I am white, but I have ancestors who were enslaved, who were Black and enslaved in America. Is there any case where you guys would be able to see that a white person would get reparations in that case?
You have a lot of the Rachel Dolezals out here who are trying to they'll try to Rachel Dolezal themselves in the game, but one of the requirements that we're recommending is that if you try to get reparations, you have to be a person that has been classified as Black for the last 10 years or so. Okay, right? So we're not going to do the $5 FBAs like they did with $5 Indians, because a lot of Native Americans that you see now are not real Native Americans. In the early 1900s, they had something called the Dawes Rolls. where white people would pay $5 to get their name on the Indian rolls to get classified as an Indian. So the Indians, if you look at pictures of them before the 1900s, they were looking like us. They were our color. Now they look like Willie Nelson now. So that's not what a Native American looks like, right? So we got to watch out for the $5 FBAs. All right,